This was a conference in DC that took place this week, and it was the Strategic Competitiveness Group run by Eric Schmidt, who was a co-founder of Google. He's now helping the Pentagon handle its third offset to compete against China on AI. And this is basically all the spooks in Washington converged at the convention center down on 7th Street for this event. And thanks to journalist Jack Paulson of Tech Inquiry, if you want critical reporting on the tech world, just check out Tech Inquiry. I think it's one of the best publications on the role of intel and the relationship between tech and the national security state. He got this footage, passed it on to me, and it really shows a lot of the desperation of key figures in the national security state, not just over Gaza, but over the student protests. This is Mark Milley, the former head of CENTCOM, on stage with Eric Schmidt, Aaron Ross Sorkin of the New York Times, who's a big cheerleader for genocide in Gaza and complete lackey of the intelligence apparatus, and Alex Karp from Palantir, this major private spying organization, which has tried to vied for a contract with Israel's Unit 8200 to participate in the Gaza genocide leading targeting, but didn't get the contract. And they're freaking out.
Before we all get self-righteous about what Israel's doing, and I feel horrible for the innocent people in Gaza that are dying, but we shouldn't forget that we, the United States, killed a lot of innocent people in Mosul and Raqqa, that we, the United States, killed 12,000 innocent French civilians. And here we are on the 80th anniversary of Normandy, on the prep fires for Normandy. We destroyed 69 Japanese cities, not including Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We slaughtered people in massive numbers, innocent people who had nothing to do with their government, men, women, and children. War is a terrible thing. But if it's going to have meaning, if it's going to have any sense of morality, it has to be a political purpose, and it must be achieved rapidly with the least cost.
So yeah, look, you're almost waiting for the blood to explode out of his eyes.
It's amazing. He never said this when he was serving, right? Even though he had plenty of public opportunities. Now he says all this, and why? It's to defend Israel, to basically to whitewash Israel. Now all of a sudden comes self-reflection when you can try to say that, well, we've done mass killings too. But actually, I think he's throwing the U.S. military under the bus, at least in recent years. In recent years, yes, Raqqa, Mosul, that was the U.S., launching horrific attacks on a densely populated area, but nothing compared to what Israel's done in Gaza. Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. What he's saying is true. He doesn't mention that Henry Stimson, who helped oversee the firebombing of Japan, left Kyoto out because he and his wife had visited there in the 30s, and he liked it so much. He thought the city was so beautiful. That's how targeting was done back then. But it's true. And the U.S. committed genocide in North Korea. Curtis LeMay, who oversaw that bombing campaign, said that, if we had lost the war, we would have all been tried as war criminals. It's true, but he's just saying this in order to defend Israel. He and everyone on that stage are such slaves to Israel that they're willing to denigrate the U.S. military and go further than even Noam Chomsky, just for Israel, all for Israel. It's sort of like this talking point we saw back in 2022 after Russia invaded Ukraine, that actually Russia's worse than the Nazis, that, they're like the neocons were all kind of like, the Nazis never did this. Nazi Germany never did what Putin did in Bucha.
Yeah. Michael McFaul said that Michael McFaul had some insane line, the former U.S. ambassador to Russia.
Yeah.
Where he basically said that Russia did is far worse than what Nazis did. Just absolutely insane. And which he had to apologize for because it was so stupid.
But he never, Here's the command, the leading commander of the military denigrating the military for a tiny little foreign apartheid state.
Yeah.
Now here comes Alex Karp. This is amazing.
And that you do by speed.
And one of the things I find personally very frustrating, the peace activists are actually the pro-war activists, and we're the peace activists. So you don't want war, you better be strong. You have to scare your adversary, and you have to be willing to
Why
act.
do you say the peace activists are war activists?
Because if you're the useful idiot of Iran and China begging, literally there are people on college campuses saying, we're doing a pro-North Korea mantra. If you think that creates peace, you are literally, why would Hamas ever give up? They have you marching for them. They're never going to give up. You are an infection inside of our society, and they are the reason they're not going to give up. If you want to stop these people, you have to be willing to be fierce.
They're out there supporting a terrorist organization whose very written charter calls for the death of all Jews, not just in Israel, worldwide. I mean, come on now.
No, it doesn't actually. I mean, that's just, I mean, every word said there was ridiculous, but that latter thing by Millie is a lie. It's a straight up lie. The Hamas charter, the updated one, says it explicitly actually goes out of its way to say our issue is not with Jewish people. Our issue is with Zionists who are occupying us, who happen to be Jews. But we don't see Jewish people as our enemy. We see Zionists who are occupying and displacing us as our enemy.
Well, yeah, they said they changed their charter. I think it was in
2017.
2017. They
Yeah.
changed their charter, and I don't know if it ever called for killing Jews everywhere, but it's a lie. And what Alex Karp is saying is just, I hate using the term Orwellian, but he's just saying war is peace, peace is war, and that if Israel doesn't get to complete its genocide, there will not be peace. So the idea of peace in his mind, in the mind of everyone on that stage and most of the people in that convention center, is peace is the strong dominating the weak and gaining the total submission and compliance of the weak. And therefore they're the peace activists because they're fierce and they're intimidating people who are fighting to get out of a permanent internment camp. In effect, they are Nazis.
And by the way, this is a very minor point, but the idea that Hamas like calibrates its actions based on what college students in the US are doing. I mean, Palantir is supposed to be they're like supposed to be like a high level intelligent firm, like, you know, making the government process more efficient and effective. I mean, and this guy calls people useful idiots while he's saying the most moronic stuff. I mean, he's obviously still trying to get that government contract with Israel because that is just the idiocy there is just, it's off the charts.
He has a contract with a lower level division of Israel's military than Unit 8200.
Okay.
And he got a contract to do targeting for Ukraine. That didn't seem to work out too well because, their soldiers are getting buried with McDonald's Happy Meals right now. They're not winning. This is Alex Karp letting the cat out of the bag later on in his presentation.
What I think is a often overlooked part of this battle is we kind of just think these things that are happening across college campuses especially are like a sideshow. No, they are the show. Because if we lose the intellectual debate, you will not be able to deploy any army in the West ever. And of course our adversaries, what I think is
So yeah, if we lose the intellectual debate, the war of ideas with those student protesters, we will not be able to deploy any army in the West ever. What does he mean by that? He means that the students are demanding divestment from major elite institutions that are sources of investment for very wealthy alumni, investments including in companies like Palantir, and that if it spreads and the model succeeds into other institutions, then the US will not be able to maintain this imperial army with bases around the world. It's the only army like it. It's really the only army like it in history, with bases just everywhere around the world. and the United States will start to become something that closely resembles a normal country, or more closely resembles a normal country in a republic. And this cannot be allowed to happen because the bank account of Alex Karp is threatened. He won't be humping in all that corporate welfare that we, the US taxpayer, give him. We're just harvested every tax season to give money to Alex Karp. It's like laundered through Ukraine and Israel aid, but it goes to him and his buddies and all the contractors in that room. So the students are actually really hitting the third rail here.
They really are. It just shows how brittle these people are and how thin their hold on power is, how it requires the population to be pacified and sidelined from policy and lacking any kind of moral conscience. And this one flare up across the country of young people, not just taking a stand on a cause, but putting themselves on the line, sleeping in tents. Like it's not a pleasant thing to do, is to be out there every single day in these encampments, but they're doing it because they believe. And that act alone is such a existential threat to all these people who profit off of the warmongering and the carnage that people like Alex Karp are involved in. It's an amazing display of just how weak they are and how they know that. Hence the freak out. And I mean, so many examples we can go through today of all the ways they're reacting. And we're going to talk about them: the anti-Semitism, the fake anti-Semitism bill, the ban on TikTok, the constant demonization of these protesters on corporate news, and the insane excuses they've come up with to try to explain why people are going out. Like that one professor at NYU, Scott Galloway, who can't stop saying that the reason these kids are out there is because they're not having enough sex. Like they're having a complete meltdown because they don't know what to do with a display of moral courage.
Yeah, and I saw the students get attacked for one encampment or mocked for requesting dental dams and HIV tests. So doesn't that kind of put the lie to Scott Galloway's canard? I mean, make up your mind. Are the students like perverted, sex-crazed deviants, or are they celibate, extremely repressed maniacs? Or could they just actually be something you're not? Non-sociopathic human beings who are actually indignant about the industrial slaughter of civilians and the scorching of children with US bombs that they pay for. Could it be, it's impossible for people like Scott Galloway or Moron Joe Scarborough to actually actually empathize. They don't have any contact with anyone like that. They're just in this hermetic echo chamber of fellow psychopaths who can't understand why anyone would be outraged by what's happening in Gaza. None of the images of parents saying goodbye to their children, having their children die in their arms in Rafah at the hands of this vicious apartheid state seem to affect them at all. How do you turn off those images? I mean, I think everyone's seen them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll play that clip. Anthony Blinken acknowledged that people are seeing the images and therefore they're breaking the narrative control we have. I mean, that's pretty much what he admitted. But before we play that, I'm not going to play the clip because it's just so cringe. But Megyn Kelly, the former Fox News host, had this meltdown where basically she was harping on the fact that she thinks the protesters are unattractive. She's like attractive, successful people aren't out there protesting. They're involved in their lives. They're, trying to like work and like raise families, and like all these unattractive people, they're just out there because they're outcast by society because they're unattractive. That was Megyn Kelly's point. I mean, it's like, to them, this display of caring for people across the world killed with bombs supplied by our government, it doesn't register, I guess, because the victims are brown and they're Muslim. And the perpetrator is Israel, which these people all just worship.